And you may start. Do you want me to mute everybody? I forgot to ask that.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to.
Go
Good
ahead.
morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, Para 1, Sutra 19. Those who merely leave their physical bodies and attain the state of celestial deities, or those who get merged in nature, have a rebirth. What is that beep beep? Does anybody else have a toot toot ringing in their ear?
Mm-mm.
There's a toot toot ringing in my ear. I don't know why.
Does your phone need to be charged?
No. Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. Clock. Turn all these stupid things off. Alarm. Yeah, it keeps going toot toot like if someone is on hold.
Oh, maybe someone's trying to get into the meeting?
I don't know. I hear it going toot toot.
No,
Toot
no one's
toot.
trying to get in. There's 7 people.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Those who merely leave their physical bodies and attain the state of celestial deities, or those who get merged in nature, have rebirth. Suppose you practice a little samprajnata samadhi and then die. Do you lose all the benefit? Patanjali says no. Once you gain a certain mastery over nature but lose this body before attaining the highest goal of liberation, you go on to become one of the controllers of nature. Such people are called videhas. Suppose you have mastered the gross elements without going into the subtler ones. You become the controller of the gross elements of nature. If you had stopped at the practice of Sa'asmita Samadhi, having reached the very depth of nature, you would have become the master of nature. Such people are called the Siddha Purushas, or the gods who control the different phenomena, Indra, Varuna, Agni, and so on, according to the Hindu names. But whoever they become, they have to come back to study further and get liberated. Temporarily, they have dropped out of nature, but to get the final degree, they have to enter the university again. We drop out temporarily, but if we are interested in getting the degree, we have to go back to the university. Prakriti is that university. You go to a certain point and get into a higher abode and control nature. But still the seeds of desire and attachments are there. You are not completely liberated. So you come back again to fulfill the other practices and get the degree. That's why even the gods have to become human beings. It is only on the human level that there is a possibility of getting liberation. The gods are just human beings who have evolved a little further and learned to control nature, and by that control, have earned the enjoyment of certain pleasures in the heavens. But after that, they come back. This coming and going will always be there until they burn all the seeds of desire and become completely liberated by knowing themselves. I personally would like to read, it's from a different book, so maybe we'll read the commentary and just see what he says. Is that okay, everyone? Okay. So 119, yogis who have not attained a samprajnata samadhi remain attached to prakriti at the time of death due to the continued existence of thoughts of becoming. I think this is what you guys were talking about yesterday. This sparsely worded sutra, the original Sanskrit is only 5 words, can be interpreted in several valid and useful ways, all of which demonstrate the same underlying principle. The continued existence of ignorance is what prevents the seeker from advancing to a samprajnata samadhi. In samprajnata samadhi, the mind has penetrated to the foundation of matter, to the pure mind, and finally to the ego. the sense of I itself, yet the influence of ignorance over mental functioning remains. The thought of becoming is the persistent desire to experience sense objects manifested from Prakriti. This desire, if not transcended in life, persists even after passing from the physical body. The thought of becoming ceases with the attainment of asamprajnata samadhi, the state in which all conscious thought comes to a standstill and only the subconscious impressions remain. There is one more that I can look at, which is Jafar's, but I don't think he has anything for 19. Let's see.
A
No.
lot of people pair 19 and 20 together.
Yeah, so we could do 20 today or 20 tomorrow. It's up
I
to
mean,
you.
20 is a big one too.
Yeah, so maybe we'll leave it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I was thinking maybe today we'll read the sutras, do a little breath and meditation, and then share, only because I personally talk a lot and I wouldn't want to miss out on meditation. But if anyone wants to share now, we can by all means chat.
No, it's okay. That works.
Okay. So sit up nice and tall, or lengthen any way that you can. If you're laying down, imagine your spine getting longer, or imagine yourself seated. And just arrive to this moment, this present moment. Notice all the people on the call with us. Even though you can't hear them, imagine that you link your breath in the same rhythm as theirs, as mine, as ours. Notice all the parts of the body that are tense or tight. Notice all the parts that are resisting either this conversation or the sutra or this meditation. And then notice all the parts that crave it, want it, desire it, happy to be in it. And as you inhale, fill the lungs, feel like you fill the belly, and everything, every part of you expands. And on the exhale, you feel yourself empty out and contract. And keep following this rhythm of the inhale, expansion, and exhale, contraction. And all things, all the time, seem to be in this rhythm of an inhale and an exhale, an expansion, a contraction, a life, a death. The way the seasons turn, the way the day turns, the way the oceans turn, the way seeds and soil turn. And even we are like this, all of our cells oscillating, and all of our experiences like this, coming to life and dying, sometimes much needed happy deaths, and coming back to life, sometimes much needed happy lives. All the feelings, all the thoughts. Even like this sutra suggests, all the coming and going. And so as we slip into meditation, let this serve as a reminder not to cling, not to hold, not to grip, but to allow the coming and the going, the living and the dying, the inhale and the exhale. And keep the breath long and smooth, slow and steady. And we'll count back from 15. And when we reach one, we'll use that opportunity to really drop in.
It starts in about 15 minutes. No.
And slowly start to deepen the breath, taking your time. And take a nice big inhale all the way to the top. Pause. No breath in, no breath out. Feel that fullness. And then exhale completely all the way to the bottom. No breath in, no breath out. And feel that emptiness. And a nice big breath in all the way to the top. Pause and feel that fullness. And then exhale all the way to the bottom and feel that emptiness. One more round. And can you guys hear me? For some reason, I'm upside down. The phone just keeps getting worse and worse. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I can hear you.
How are we doing? How was that?
It was good
It was good.
to just sit and breathe.
Yeah, of course. So what, something was coming to me and then it slipped. It'll come back though, I'm sure. Anyone have anything they want to share or ask or read or anything? For me, this sutra, see, this is where it gets funny for me with the sutras because I feel like he's specifically telling us what to do, and then at the same time telling us don't obsess about it. And I'm the kind of person that, I very easily obsess over things. So I feel like he's sharing this technique with us, like all, and giving us all the tools. Like, look, this is what's going to happen, and then these things have to happen first. And then on the same time, there's this sort of touch of ease that we're supposed to add to everything. This touch of like easiness, like, oh yeah, you'll reach these states, and this is the step to reach the states, and these are the things to look out for. And at the same time, you'll be pulled back and forth, but at the same time, it's your job to keep this sort of like lightness, this easiness about it all, which for me can be very hard. These conversations can be very heady and very sort of like, I want to make sure that I do it right. Anybody else have that, where like you have this fear that maybe you're not doing things the right way and you want to make sure you do it the right way? I'm going to read it one more time just so that we those who merely leave their physical bodies and attain the state of celestial deities, or those who get merged in nature, have rebirth. So if we reach these states in our physical life, like in real life, like we are now, in real life, I think, I hope, then whatever states we, so whatever achievements we make in our meditation are not lost. We'll reincarnate at some point and come back having already attained, like not losing what we achieved. But I feel like in this one, he's speaking like specifically to a thing. So yogis who have not attained asamprajnata samadhi. So the asamprajnata samadhi is where you can let the thinking mind go, right? Asamprajnata samadhi is when only the subconscious is present, not the conscious mind. The conscious mind has gone. So all those thoughts, those are sort of gone. Yogis who have not attained asamprajnata samadhi remain attached to the prakriti at the time of death due to the continued existence of thoughts of becoming. So those of us who don't ever let go of the conscious mind, and we attach to this idea that things are always evolving, things are always becoming. We become obsessed with this idea of like, oh yeah, I'm becoming this, or my practice is becoming this, or somehow in our daily experiences, the focus is of becoming. It's almost like we're clinging to something that never has satisfaction, never has full, doesn't have fulfillment, because we trap ourselves in this loop. Aww. So cute. Yeah, and this is what it's meaning to me. I'm sure it has some much more philosophical, much more in-depth explanation that some yogi can give us. But for me, this is what it means. It's like you can stunt your own growth in a way. Yeah, anything about anything, even if it's not about the sutra.
Raghu always talks about how the yogi is preparing not just for living but for passing.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that and the idea is that whatever you're obsessing over is going to be what is in your mind at the time of passing, and that's what's going to drag you into your next life. Like whatever you're obsessing over, like what you're saying, whatever you're addicted to or averse to is going to be what fills your mind and what drags you into your next life. So you're always kind of like in training ground to for that last moment. And these people who are able to absorb their mind in prakriti are able to then, they get pulled into prakriti. They can then, they say they're like the personality of the elements of prakriti.
Which is always becoming something.
Right. It's always moving. It's always flowing. So like they're not necessarily enlightened because they can control matter.
Right.
I always thought it was an interesting idea that you could like reincarnate as the controller of the universe. Like this even Brahman or Brahma, like the creator of individual universes, you can like reincarnate as, they say, if you get high enough in your meditation. I guess it's pretty out there, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless.
Yeah, well, I thought it was really interesting too, because like this conversation of other beings, this conversation of like, you know, when you grow, I don't know if it happens to you, but like you raised Catholic, so it's like you have this very firm image of what God is, and like who are those seated beside God. Like that's very specific, the way I was raised, the way I learned about God, these people are very specific people. And in this sutra, it's almost like that could really be anyone who attains a certain level. So it's like you're able to bring your mind to a stillness for something, but because you don't evolve past that something, your experience is always in that something. Even when you become the deity, you become the deity of that thing.
Right. But then there's also what Raghu also says is, what Bhakti teaches is that it's like pointless, is how it relates to Catholicism is what you're saying, is like, they're always like, don't worship false idols.
Right.
And what it teaches is that like they're all emanations of the one. And it's illusion to believe that they are separate things. Like sometimes people will worship like Lakshmi because they want money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were all these like fables of Lakshmi like turning on you if you don't love her for the right reasons type thing. But like some people will worship Lakshmi thinking like, this is going to bring me happiness, this is going to bring me satisfaction, this is going to bring me what I was looking for. But like the real deeper teachings of yoga say, why are you spending your time, wasting your time, your energy, your attention on that, when you should focus on the emanation, like on where it came from, which will give you all the same results, but will take you to the end result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely different connotations than Catholicism with like sin and hell and all that stuff, though.
Mm-hmm. No, and where I feel like trapped in Catholicism, like I can only do things one way. It's like the path of yoga is like, oh no, there's so many ways. You know,
Yeah.
there's a name for every feeling, there's a name for every action, there's a spirit in every thought. Like there's like when he talks about Agni, and Agni being like the keeper of fire. Like to me, this is very meaningful because I'm starting to look at like in more indigenous, like how original people worshipped and how like indigenous people, you'll see this a lot in indigenous cultures. Like there is a fire god, there is a earth and wind. Like there are sort of like controllers of the elements or controllers of um, occurrences. Let's say like you want something to happen, there is a controller for that thing. and and it's funny because you're always, when you're asking very carefully, and you're always sort of in communion or in conversation with these deities in a very reverent, careful sort of way, because they are also tricksters, which we see a lot in the yogic path too. Like there sometimes, for human beings to get it, I think there has to be like a trickster quality to it, because we're going to be drawn to certain things. Our human needs will be drawn to certain things. That ego will be drawn to attaining something. And the Almighty knows this. The Almighty will draw you towards a thing, having you think it's the thing that you're going to get, but actually it's a path to your own growth. It's a path for knowledge. Like I was listening last night to podcast. I'll share it with you guys if you'd like. He's fascinating. The podcast is all about people who are rewilding and giving up like modern conveniences, like people who really live off the grid and that sort of thing. And there's this doctor who actually talks about this way of living, this style of living, this approach towards life. But you could literally be anywhere. Like he lives in is it Chennai, India, which is like a big city. And he talks about how you can even be in this spirit of like rewilding in the middle of the city. But my point was that he was talking about the Yoruba people, and he was saying how slavery, how people, because the Yoruba comes from like West Africa, but because of slave trade, it made its way to many islands. So in the Dominican Republic, you'll have something called Santeria. In Puerto Rico, you have Santeria also. Haiti has Bundun, which is like, they're all sort of like branches of the Yoruba tradition. And he says that one of the gods actually brought the ships from Europe. He did it on purpose, so that in this occurrence, right? We'll call it an event, for lack of a better word, so that in this event, there new life and new beings would be formed. And so there today we have every color, every combination, every mixture of religion, every pain, every joy, every oh my God, the word is on the tip of my tongue, retribution, like all the things that exist today and all the conversations that exist today can only exist because of this occurrence, even though it was atrocious, even though it was horrible, even though it was, like they say that about Elegua. Elegua is the path maker. So he's the one that puts, he sort of builds paths, and sometimes those paths make no sense. So I want to go from here, I want to go from A to B, and Elegua has a way of taking you from A to X to Y to T to R to U to B, and then, you know what I mean, and then or to C, and then to B. And you don't exactly know why you were taken on that detour, that strange path, but in the end it brings you back to this, to your original point, or like to the original goal. And it's like, it's almost like a prayer can be answered, but not always in the way that you look for the answer. That prayer can come to you in the way that you need it, or in the way that the world needs it. And it's really fascinating to listen to. It was really fascinating to listen to this doctor talk about such a long and such a painful thing with reverence, with like to listen to someone turn something on its head, to turn God on its head, like that God is not always benevolent, and to turn that on us too, and then to turn an atrocious occurrence on its head also, and to be willing to say, I can look at this another way, you know, like. And I think about the sutra like someone who maybe who maybe is trapped in this like destructive force or destructive element, and like to be the holder of that, to be the carrier or the master of this destructive element. Like why everyone is scared of Kali, you know, and like she's like this terrible force. Don't mess with Kali, you know, don't pray to Kali. But really, isn't it always what's happening anyway? Consumption, like rebirth and consumption, destruction is all around us. It's on the other side of birth. It's on the other side of creation. Not really separate, but just the other side of the hand. I don't know. Everybody's so quiet today.
Sorry, Isabella was being really loud, so I muted
No,
my
she's so
mic.
cute. She's so cute.
Jackie Michelin, do you have any thoughts on the matter? No, so sleepy.
Yeah.
No, I'm here. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, what you were saying about um the different paths to yoga, like to growing spiritually rather than being in one box. That's something that totally resonates with me. And like at one point I remember telling a couple of people, I'm like, I can't call myself or label myself Christian because I don't believe in my heart that that's the only way to God. I'm like, I can't look at my friend, my Pakistani Muslim friend who is consistently praying and her kids are so awesome. She has 4 kids, and tell her she's doing it wrong, because to me that sounds crazy.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just really the sort of dogmatic parts of the religion. That's not even what Jesus taught.
Totally.
Like if you get back to what Jesus taught, it's exactly the same thing the yogis teach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Amanda, I don't know if you remember because you've had a gazillion YTTs, but when we first started chanting, I told you that it felt like I felt uncomfortable, or like not at ease, because I felt like I was doing something wrong because that's how I grew up. And you told me, but it's just a name, like something along, it's just a name. When you think about it, there's only one God. And it took me a little bit, but it didn't take me that long to get there. Like, yeah, like, and then, before you know it, I was like the happiest person chanting in our group.
Yeah. I always remember all roads lead to Krishna. I don't remember who said it, but it was during my teacher training. And it could have been a visiting teacher. It could have even been Sujin, honestly, who taught me.
It could have been.
Like all roads lead to Krishna, which means it doesn't matter whose name you chant. It doesn't matter which line you follow. They're all leading to one. And the same way I could say all roads lead to Krishna, I could say all roads lead to Allah, all roads lead to Hashem, all roads lead to God. It's the same, I guess. I mean, in my brain it is. Okay, I'd like to just share one thing, and then maybe we could do a little breath practice before we go take class and do our things. And I think it's the last line of this. It's a different book. It's not the blue book, the Sachidananda. It's by Jagannath Carrera. So the last line in his interpretation is, for yogis who have not attained a samprajnata, so those of us who have not been able to conquer the conscious mind, remain attached to Prakriti at the time of death due to the continued existence of thoughts of becoming. So it's because we are always thinking about becoming something, which for me, just before we breathe, is it's also a message for me, like for the everyday decisions, everyday life, is to do things sort of with the easiness around ambition. Like, I'm always trying to become a writer. I'm always trying to become a good yoga teacher. I'm always trying to become a good mom, or I'm always trying to, there's always a goal. There's always an end result. And I think that to really capture this lesson for the day is that whatever we are becoming, we consider that maybe we already are. There's nothing to work on. There's nothing to be in obsession about. Like, to become a good yoga teacher, there's nothing really for me to do that can make me a good yoga teacher. There's just a yoga practice. And then if I remove my focus from being a good teacher to just being deep in my own experience and my own practice, it's the evolution of that. There's a potential to go much further than if I'm focused on what I will become, if that makes sense. So somehow, in some way, maybe just for today as a lesson, we can carry this lesson in our heart and consider giving up trying to become, or giving up the sense of like, for lack of better word, like ambition, that I'm not trying to be something. I am already this something. I guess we can do alternate nostril breath. It's what we did yesterday. We could do that for 5 minutes before we go. So left hand on your lap, peace fingers of the right hand inside the hand or tucked in. You close off your right nostril and take a deep breath in through the left. When you get to the top, pause and close off both. And then when you're ready for the exhale, exhale through the right by lifting your thumb. And then repeat, inhale from the right side. Close off both. And exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both. Exhale through the left. And keep going for as long as you'd like, or until the buzzer sounds. Once you've exited through the left nostril, you can come back to your natural breath. And maybe, Ashley, maybe you can make sure everybody's unmuted. I don't know if we are. Thank you, everybody, for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Adriana.
Yeah, it was a very soft landing today. Thank you.
It's a good way to wake up.